Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and this is your coronavirus tech news for Thursday, April 16th of 2020, and we have a lot of ground to cover. Now, this first article is coming from Study Finds, and it basically says that we are watching a ton of Netflix and other streaming services. Now, a new survey of 2,000 U.S. residents find that the average American is currently streaming 8 hours a day of content and finishing on average 3 full television series per week. Now, if we keep this rate up currently, you could exhaust the entire Netflix library basically by summer. We are blowing through this left and right, apparently. Now, moreover, many parents have started to fall back on streaming services to basically babysit their kids and also get a break from their kids. In all, about 65% of surveyed parents say that they are allowing their kids to watch more TV and movies during the pandemic. The research also noted that the average American enjoys access to 4 different streaming services, whatever those are: Netflix, Hulu, now Disney Plus, etc., etc. Another 38% are usually logged into 5 or more at any given time, and obviously 47% are also taking advantage of free streaming services like YouTube, etc. In all, 75% of respondents are using streaming services way more in general than prior to this entire pandemic. Unbelievably, 50% of respondents have finished entire TV series in 48 hours or less. So if you have a backlog on movies, looks like you're catching up, but we are watching the heck out of this, which means we are using a heck of a lot more of internet than we previously were before. Now, this next article comes from the New York Post, and I found this to be rather fascinating and a little amusing as well. And we're going to be talking about Dr. Anthony Fauci. If you don't know that name, he has been one of the major faces here in the United States that has basically helped inform the general public, about COVID-19 and is essentially helping to shepherd us through all of this. And he says that basically, if you need to hook up on Tinder, you can do it, but there's going to be some risks. Now, he was being interviewed, and in this interview, he said, and I quote, and this is, mind you, this is recent: if you're swiping on a dating app like Tinder, Bumble, or Grindr, you match with someone you think is hot, and then you're just like, well, maybe it's fine if this stranger comes over, and what do you say to that person? To continue quoting, if you're willing to take a risk, and you know everybody has their own tolerance for risks, you could figure out if you want to meet somebody. So basically, he's giving you permission to hook up on Tinder, Bumble, Grindr, etc. Just understand the risks, understand what's going on, and probably take better precautions like asking the person if they've had the symptoms. So basically, here it is. If you want to get your freak on, Dr. Fauci's okay with it, with some caveats. And fun fact about Dr. Fauci, he is 79 years old and is currently a candidate for People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive. So go Dr. F. Moving on, we're going to be heading on over to MSNBC, and they've got a really fascinating article about the Ford Motor Company in the middle of this, because their workers are experimenting with wearable social distancing devices that could be deployed more widely, basically as Ford starts to spin its plants up right now. Ford, like many others, has been converting their plants from car-making facilities into things like ventilator-making facilities. And so a small group of volunteers at a Ford factory in Plymouth, Michigan, are trying out basically a wearable device like a watch that will vibrate when another employee comes within 6 feet of them. And this is according to the company's spokesperson. Now, the aim obviously is to keep workers from breaching that social distancing rule. So as they are working, let's say, on the factory floor or wherever they are in Ford, they are keeping that distance by virtue of proximity. They don't have to judge. The watch will tell them. Now, basically, these smartwatches are coming from Samsung, and Ford is piloting them with software from a technology firm called Radiant RFID. Now, these devices utilize Bluetooth, shortwave, and low-power technology to detect proximity and clustering of workers. Now, in near real time, workers will receive a vibration and a color-coded warning on the watch to let them know when they are closer than 6 feet to another person. Supervisors can also receive alerts and reports that can be used to monitor social distancing and clustering in the workplace. So if employees are ignoring the bans and all of that, the supervisors will know because they can also be alerted. And so that should hopefully keep Ford Motor Company and probably others that adopt this, their workforce a lot more safe and healthy because there's social distancing by virtue of technology and technological geofences. And finally, coming from the Wall Street Journal, and I think this was absolutely interesting. There was an article entitled "How Coronavirus is Eroding Privacy." Now, I've talked before here on video or podcast, however you're watching or listening to this, about all of these apps and proximity sensors that are being made by Apple and Google, and I just literally talked about Ford doing something like this. They're obviously ripe for data mining and other privacy violations as well, not to mention the possibility of turning somebody into a social pariah if they disclose to one of these apps that they do have the coronavirus or had the coronavirus, and now as they're walking down the street, the people around them that are also part of that network would get an alert to say they're within proximity of basically the modern day leper. So that is something that I think we have to think about for a second as we are putting all of this out, because you are literally possibly violating your own privacy by doing it, let alone all of the data mining stuff. And mind you, some countries like those in Asia have been imposing these tracking measures as a societal order, basically doing it without any kind of public consent. In Europe and America, though, where there are more stringent privacy laws, governments have been basically taking a different approach. And the author of this particular Wall Street Journal article, Lisa Lin, made some really good points on this whole situation. And to quote her directly, in Europe and the US, where privacy laws and expectations are more stringent, governments and companies are taking different approaches. European nations monitor citizen movement by tapping telecommunications data they say conceal individuals' identities. American officials are drawing cell phone location data from mobile advertising firms to track the presence of crowds, but not individuals. Apple Inc. and Alphabet Inc.'s Google recently announced plans to launch a voluntary app that health officials can use to reverse engineer sickened patients' recent whereabouts, and provided they agree to provide such information. I'd also like to point out, too, that in the United States here, we don't necessarily have any kind of privacy law at the moment when it comes to GPS. Law enforcement, both federal and local here in the United States, have been able to, in real time, get your GPS location from companies like Location Smart without needing your consent or even a warrant, not to mention other tracking things, like let's say the Amazon Ring doorbell. Are they going to tie that into this so that they can see the movement and proximity? But this is something that I think we really need to understand, because when you've got some kind of emergency, the government likes to take control, and perhaps in some ways, it is for the good of the people, in the sense that, we have to social distance, let's say, to get through a coronavirus. But at the end of the day, this means it's also right for possible tendencies for authoritarianism or data privacy or data mining and all these kinds of things. And I think that's a fine line we have to walk, especially as somebody who wears a rather large tinfoil hat when it comes to things privacy. So there you go. That is your Corona Tech News for today, and I hope everybody out there is healthy. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.